Good morning, people. I think the mic. It is indeed, thank you for that warm introduction. I noticed he repeated the F word several times. Well, I promise you, it is a radical emancipatory term that absolutely pertains to questions of emancipation. It simply means we will include women in emancipation, that women too are wanting to go further than men in seeking beyond emancipation, liberation, equality, and justice for all. So, as an African and a feminist, I just want to lay your fears to rest and say that we too are part of the African liberation struggle. And indeed, you can look through the annals of our great freedom-fighting leaders, Samora Machel, Amilcar Cabral, Frantz Fanon. All of them have demanded that women also should be emancipated from colonialism, and especially from the patriarchal character of colonization and imperialism, which oppressed men and women in variegated ways, all of which have to be contested. Special relationship between Ghana and the diaspora. I understand why that is so, and it is simply an envy that says, yes, the rest of Africa needs to take up this example. Because on much of the continent, certainly where I grew up in the northern reaches of Nigeria, we were not taught about slavery, the transatlantic slavery. But what we did know was that among us there is still class and caste systems that function to oppress and exploit ordinary people. So I start from there. As a young girl, woman growing up in Nigeria, we witness oppression and we witness abuse of one another on a daily basis. As we all know, slavery still exists to date. Our brother earlier mentioned the selling of Africans on the auction blocks of North Africa. As a woman, I want to draw your attention to the kafala system, because just last week I was in Uganda boarding my flight and I saw dozens of young women heavily veiled with corporate t-shirts on their back. These are young Ugandan women being trafficked to the Middle East. Destination Dubai. So our girls and women are still being enslaved. They're not paid. They are held captive in the basements of houses. So, all is not well with regard to emancipation. And I heard previous speakers saying this is unfinished business. And even Nkrumah himself, who introduced Liberation Day, African Liberation Day, with the hosting of the first conference of all African states, even he, when he won independence for Ghana, said this was just the first step. Ahead of us lies an even more serious and fierce struggle. Emancipation, that is a kind of flag recognition, is meaningless, just as the liberation of Ghana is meaningless without full liberation, and indeed its expansion to the rest of the African world. If we were to choose a date, and no criticism intended, we might also prefer the date of January the 1st, because that was the date of the Haitian Revolution, when the Haitian slaves uprose and overthrew the French and created the first Black Republic on the 1st of January in it was before the Emancipation Proclamations. We welcome our diasporans, but they can't save us. Anyone who saw Wakanda, that Black Panther film, knows that the American fiction is that Africa will save them, not that they will save us. I think I come from a generation that's disappointed in terms of what African governments have failed to deliver. I come from a generation that has borne witness to dictatorial governments, to theft, loot, and plunder, no longer perpetrated by outsiders on their own, but from within. So the cancer is within. It is within. It is with us now. So I call upon us, much as the importance of celebrating and remembering our history is that we will never get out of the problems we currently experience if we do not think harder and understand the difference between emancipation as a first step, sovereignty as a necessary step. We need to control our state. But if we do not carry that forward for the betterment and well-being of our people, for the reacquisition of our minds and our resources, do you know that others are making the profit on Ghana's gold? Ghana gets a tiny percentage. We don't even negotiate deals properly yet. We are the richest continent on the planet. I got a note from an economist friend of mine the other day. 30% of the world's mineral sources and most of the precious metal reserves, the richest concentration of natural resources. And we know all about oil, copper, diamonds, bauxite, lithium, gold, tropical hardwood forest. We could run with the list of our wealth, yet we remain the poorest continent. 60% of the world's arable land is here. And now we're going to suffer because Ukraine cannot export wheat? We don't even grow wheat. Why are we eating wheat? An emancipated person might still dress in a suit and tie if he wishes, but a liberated person, a proudly African liberated person, will probably throw away the tie and the cravats and a few other things, because look at the beauty we have among us. The cloth. Every time I see it worn and move the way it moves, it takes my breath away. Never forget these things. This is another kind of wealth that we are not short of. We just have to revalue it. We may be emancipated, but we're not emancipated enough because we cannot protect our own. We cannot enrich ourselves, most of us. This is not good enough. So I'm ticking us off because I do believe that self-criticism is an emancipatory, liberatory act. And as the previous speaker said, we have to start with ourselves. But then we also have to relate to our country people and be strong in the unity that Nkrumah called for. And his vision was extensive. It was not just Ghana, or even just Ghana and the diaspora. The whole continent, and nothing but the whole continent would have been enough for him. We're here to deliver a wreath, to memorialize one of the greatest African thinkers of the 20th century. That man lived almost 100 years. He saw all the stages of the American so-called emancipation. And then he gave up. I mean, they persecuted him, accused him of communism. He came here. I'm very happy to and honored to have been invited to share a few thoughts with you. But my dissatisfaction isn't in bad spirit. It is simply an appreciation of the urgency. We want more than emancipation. We will mark emancipation to remind ourselves that the true path is liberation and that freedom is not given. Now, I could be quoting Nkrumah. I don't remember who I'm quoting. We know that it has to be taken, and it is up to us to take it. Our governments could be doing better, but they will only do better if we push them. So we want beyond emancipation. So I called my remarks from emancipation to real liberation, and that requires engaging with the economy as well as culture and politics. Thank you very much for your attention.
see much of it. Good people, development,